I'm Stephen Mayne, welcome to the Mayne Report. The 2008 AGM season is about to get into full swing, and one of the earliest gatherings was the Australian Foundation Investment Company AGM at Melbourne's Hilton Hotel on September 26. I went to AFIC's AGM last year to tackle the question of why Stan Wallis was still sitting on its board when he's got a terrible record, having destroyed billions at AMP and presided over a fiasco at Coles Myer. This is how the exchange unfolded last year with AFIC's chairman Bruce Teele. AMP is the largest destruction of Australian capital in history. Stan should not be sitting on any public company boards after that episode. He was on the panel that selected George Trumbull, which was a disaster. He took over as chairman. It almost went broke.
20 seconds.
Okay, so I'm simply putting the case that I think shareholders should send a message to AFIC that Stan should quietly retire, and we should vote against Stan's re-election today.
Stan probably did more to rescue and turn AMP around than anybody ever knows.
Sadly, Stan Wallis was re-elected with 96% of the votes in favour, confirming once again that Australia does not have a culture of boardroom accountability when it comes to director elections. Now, Stan Wallis and Bruce Teele also sit on the board of AMCIL, another listed investment company. So I fronted their AGM 2 weeks ago and ran the same arguments about Wallis not being appropriate. I don't think it looks good for this board or for the AFIC board or for the broader stable, and we are the largest listed investment company stable in the country, to continue to have Stan on this board when he was the chairman of AMP when it announced the largest destruction of capital in Australian history. I think this situation of somewhere between 5 and 10 billion being written off and the leader of the company still sitting on this board...
I'm going to rule this out of order.
Now, I was away with the family for a few days and couldn't actually get to the AFIC AGM myself. So I drafted up the following script, which my marvellous multimedia producer Shane Marden was going to read out at the AFIC AGM as follows.
G'day, I'm Shane Marden. This is the first AGM I've ever spoken at, and this is what I was told to tell AFIC shareholders. Thank you, Chairman. My name is Shane Marden and I work for Stephen Mayne, and I'm here today as his proxy to ask one very simple question. Does the AFIC board still believe it is appropriate to have Stan Wallis on the board of Australia's biggest listed investment company, when Mr Wallis was the chairman of AMP during a period when it lost more than $5 billion in the UK? Mr Teele, AFIC's chairman, said the following about Mr Wallis at last year's AGM.
Stan probably did more to rescue and turn AMP around than anybody ever knows.
The facts of the matter are that Mr Wallis joined the AMP board in 1990 and was chairman from 2000 until 2003. A few months later, he resigned and voluntarily declined to take his $1.6 million retirement benefits. Such was the embarrassment. AMP reported a record $5.5 billion loss for the calendar year of 2003. At the 2000 AMP AGM, when AMP shares were trading just above $11, Mr Wallis confidently predicted that they were really worth closer to $30. By late 2003, they fell below $3 when AMP almost went broke. By what objective measure did Mr Wallis rescue and turn around AMP? If the former AMP CEOs George Trumbull and Paul Batchelor are not on any Australian boards, why should the chairman of AMP during Australia's biggest capital destruction continue to sit on the prestigious AFIC board? Surely AFIC should be setting a good example on director accountability. Mr Wallis turns 70 next year and is one of Australia's longest serving directors, having first joined AFIC in 1987. Mr Mayne politely counsels that it is time he gracefully retires after 21 years. If not, Mr Mayne is formally serving notice today that he will propose the removal of Mr Wallis as a director at a shareholder meeting in 2009. We would appreciate your comments as to whether we can expect a speedy retirement from Mr Wallis after he was re-elected with 96% of the vote in favour at last year's AFIC AGM, which he failed to attend. Thank you.
My name is Shane Martin and I work for Stephen Mayne, and I'm here today as his proxy to ask a very simple question. Does the board still believe that it is appropriate appropriate to have Stan Wallis on the board, Australia's biggest listed investment company, when Mr. Wallis was...
Can I just stop you? We debated this last year at our annual meeting. Stephen was here.
Yeah.
And I said I completely disagree with that point of view. But the fact is, number one, the shareholders voted overwhelmingly against that proposition. And number two, as chairman, my job is to make sure that the board, to look at its function. And I can tell you, Stan functions very well. But it's not part of this agenda, and I'm not going to speak any more about it.
Can I ask a similar question? I was instructed by Mr. Main to say that he was to call for Mr. Wallis's resignation, and if not, Mr. Main was formally serving notice today that he will propose the removal of Mr. Wallis as a director at a shareholder meeting in 2009.
Bruce Teele is an avuncular old fellow. He's into his 70s. He's sat on the AFIC board since 1954. He's been chairman since 1966. But this performance in his 42nd AGM in the chair was just too much to tolerate. So I've decided it's time to get tough with these guys. I'm going to call a special shareholders meeting of AFIC in 2009 to propose a resolution to remove Stan Wallis as a director. As for Bruce Teele, he probably should retire as well. And with Stan Wallis's full record on display in front of the shareholders, I'll eat my hat if he gets anything near 96% of the shareholders saying, yeah, we should have the guy who helped destroy $5 billion of value at AMP sitting on our board. I'm Stephen Main, doing my best to try and get a little bit of accountability into Australia's boardrooms.